Hi, my name's Nate Johnson, and I'm the founder and CEO of GLCS. This is Driving Forward, Tuesday's Trip. This coming Thursday at 1 p.m., Kevin Combs, Greenscreens.ai, CRO, will be on our podcast talking about market rates, relationships, AI, and just the transportation industry in general. Kevin and I have a great time talking about the industry. You should certainly tune in. Once again, Thursday at 1 p.m. The following week, Thursday, December 14th at 1 p.m., I'll have Robert Bain on. Robert Bain, the strongest man in logistics. We'll be talking about a variety of subjects. I'll update you as we pin down exactly what we're going to talk about, but I'm certain that we'll have a lot to speak about. Robert and I can pretty much talk the night away. So excited to have Robert on Thursday the 14th. In another upcoming event, GLCS will be participating with Wreaths Across America. Wreaths Across America on December 16th at Fort Snelling National Cemetery in the Minneapolis area. If you want to participate in Wreaths Across America, the website is wreathsacrossamerica.org. And I believe they're still looking for donations, always looking for donations, and they're still looking for assistance in their wreath placing ceremonies as well. I think the majority or the wreath placing ceremonies are all taking place December 16th. So once again, we are we are participating on December 16th. If you're in the Minneapolis area and want to participate with us, it is once again at the Fort Snelling National Cemetery. Please sign up at Wreaths Across America, and we'd be happy to see you there. If you just want to reach out to us directly and participate with us, they've said that they have plenty of open spaces and just bring who we can. So feel free to reach out to drivingforward@glcs.net, and we'd be happy to have you come with us. So with that being said, I wanted to open up this week's Tuesday trip and just talk about one of the industry items that's kind of come open recently. The There's been a bill. It's really been defined as the GOT or Got Truckers Act, which is also known as HR 7517, and it's sponsored by a representative from Michigan's 9th District, Andy, I believe it's Levine, but I don't know if that's exactly how you pronounce his last name. The act is to pay truck drivers for time and a half over 40 hours in a week. And specifically, this comes down to a Fair Labor Standards Act that was passed in 1938 that exempted truck drivers from overtime pay coverage. It actually really the Fair Labor Standard Act, or FLSA, does exempt a number of employees from overtime coverage, as much as I think there's been a narrative that says, truck drivers are the only ones that get exempted from overtime pay. There's actually a large number of people that get exempted from overtime pay. I think for the most part, many organizations, employees, etc., or employers, etc., ignore that exemption and pay overtime regardless. But that being said, the Andy Levine, the representative from Michigan, has stated truck drivers, and this is a statement directly from the Michigan representative. Truck drivers across the country face brutal working conditions marked by inadequate pay and long hours. Despite their tireless work, truck drivers do not receive overtime pay for overtime hours. As a result, the trucking industry faces an extremely high turnover rate as truckers cannot keep up with thankless demands of their work. We all stand to benefit when truckers are paid what they're owed. In rebuttal to this, there's been several statements. I think the most common one that's been heard is ATA CEO's Chris Spear, or ATA CEO Chris Spear. He stated, "This proposal is nothing more than a thinly veiled attempt to boost trial attorney fees. It would reduce drivers' paychecks and decimate trucking jobs by upending the pay models that for 85 years have provided family-sustaining wages while growing the U.S. supply chain." So those are all 2 points, and I definitely have read a lot about this, and I was going to put a statement out on this particular act, and I mean this is something that's been out now over 20 days, and I've held off my comments as I wanted to see this sort of develop and hear everyone's opinions. Um, I've listened to the driver's side of this now, and I've listened to the company side of this at this point, and I certainly have my own opinion as well. As you go through this even further, this particular FLSA exemption does apply to many other aspects of the industry as well. You look at mechanics, you look at driver helpers, at loaders, and I ask questions around, do these roles actually get paid overtime today, or do they not, even though they do carry these exemptions? Potentially the industry or the role has required that they get paid overtime regardless, or they're simply going to find another position at another company that is going to pay them overtime. So that's one thing. The other side with this particular act was its initial intention. Everything that I've read was that the initial action with this act, with the FLSA Act in 1938, was to establish a working, to keep truck drivers from working too much. So it wasn't to establish a baseline where drivers work a large amount of hours. It was to create a standard where drivers did not work a lot of hours. And so that's a different scenario, because hours of service did not exist in the same fashion that they do today. And compliance did not exist in the same fashion that they do today. So keeping that in mind, the simple fact that you did not get paid for all the time that you put in controlled some of that work, or at least debatably that did. I certainly wasn't around in that time period. There's lots of jobs that are exempt from overtime pay. If you look it up and Google it, lots and lots of jobs. Many of them are still paid overtime. So I think when I look into it, I'm actually quite surprised at how many jobs are exempt from overtime pay. But you can list them. Many of them are software related. So yeah, and certainly not required to be paid overtime pay. Many of those software related jobs would be salary related or salary paid today for the most part. Certainly this bill is supported by OOIDA. I've listened to many of the points from OOIDA. The bill is definitely something that's championed. It increases driver pay. I think that there's a lot of questions around how this may alienate the independent contractors in general. The and that's certainly a concern overall. Um, Part of the question that is out there, I think that many of the carriers are asking is, in an industry that averages a 2% or less net margin, how is one supposed to carry a true scenario? So if you are currently making X amount of pay, how do you suddenly adopt a pure overtime pay above and beyond that? Um, Certainly at a net margin of 2%, there's not a lot of room to maneuver there. So that overall raises a lot of good questions. I think that the industry has a lot of searching to do here, and overall, I don't believe that pay is necessarily the only thing that has to be done within the industry. I think that this is a great conversation that we need to have. I think that it's a conversation that needed to start 15 to 20 years ago, that it's something that we as a industry need to address. So it may have to start with pay. So drivers certainly need to get paid what they're working on and what they're doing. But is it an overtime scenario? Is it something else? I do call it driver reform. So in a scenario that drivers are potentially unhappy and there is high turnover, that's some of the carriers within the industry. But I know at GLCS we have some carriers that have very low turnover. They're running 6%, 7% turnover, and that's a very healthy number. So what's the difference between organization that has 100%, 200% turnover and an organization that has 6% turnover? And many times that has to do with hiring lower or newer drivers to the industry, or drivers that are maybe not as skilled. You know, that kind of goes hand in hands. But you're hiring drivers that are coming out of school, or you're hiring drivers that maybe have a very low amount of experience, or you're hiring drivers for undesirable jobs. So or are at least difficult to hire for. So that's a few things. Maybe you have um, something that's highly technical and hard to find. But many times when you look at driving jobs such as fuel haulers, finished automotive carriers, those type of things, those typically pay very high, and they don't necessarily have high turnover. So in those particular scenarios, um, I don't think we experience that high turnover, and you don't have necessarily these complaints either. I've heard many people in the industry also state that there is a high paid driver is a safer driver. And I can agree with that. A high paid driver is a safer driver. But currently today, the higher paid drivers are fewer and farther between. So you look at Walmart, for example. Walmart pays drivers much higher than most organizations. You have to be an exceptional driver to work for Walmart, and they have great safety numbers. So to get to Walmart, you have to be an exemplary driver. And the data that we're working with to be able to monitor a high paid driver is only from companies that have the ability to pay that higher amount of driver, or that higher pay to a driver. So it is those companies that um, are fuel haulers, are finished automotive carriers, are retail, are LTL local delivery, and those particular scenarios are going to be much more safety centric than your other fleets. So that being said, your data is skewed. I can challenge that debate. If every driver in the industry suddenly gets a 50% pay increase or a 30% pay increase, this is not going to suddenly make every driver in the industry safe. That takes culture change. That takes training. That takes many, many other things than just suddenly paying people more money and they're going to suddenly be safe. So I challenge the narrative of pay them more money and they're going to be safe. That's not true. There's no one out there that can make me believe that. I certainly understand the fact that you can pay people more money and they might slow down, but that is not going to happen industry wide. That may impact a few people. Overall, I believe that the drivers as a whole, the driving role as a whole needs an overhaul. I believe it needs some sort of reform in general. I believe that if this bill passes, it's not going to impact gross driver pay at all. Every company in the industry is just simply going to reduce their their driver pay and have it impact the gross pay so that it's going to net out accordingly. The larger companies are going to be safe. There's going to be some smaller companies that are going to make some mistakes. It's going to have some negative impact and we're going to have some problems there. Your smaller owner operator, or sorry, your smaller motor carriers with 5-6 trucks are really going to struggle with this because they're not capable of understanding their costs accordingly, and they're going to get bit. Many of them are going to get bit by it. So it's a industry change that's going to sneak up on a few people. So it's a change that needs to be cautiously made and carefully made, or we'll have companies buckling underneath it. But I do believe in the reform. So I do believe in the reform, and I don't think, I've said it before several times, I don't think many of the companies out there know what needs to be done, and I don't think that the drivers really know what need to be done yet either. We can raise the pay all you want, but and certainly I'm not saying that's not part of it, but I think a lot more needs to be done too. I think communication needs to be raised. I think that making the drivers part of the office daily routine, and in today's world where we can all be part of that, and with today's technology, and bringing them into the fold where they feel as if they're part of the team, especially in the over the road world. I think that's part of it. I think all of that kind of folds in together, but I don't think we all have those answers yet. So with that being said, I appreciate everybody's time. I appreciate y'all listening in. Stay curious, stay informed, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation. Thanks for listening in.